Natural gas market is set to see an increase in global supply, with output measuring just short of 400 billion cubic feet per day throughout this year and rising to 520 cubic feet per day by the year 2025, with African output driven by Algeria, Nigeria, Libya, and Egypt. And this was part of the new State of African Energy Sector report for the second quarter, released a few days ago by the African Energy Chamber. Let's get more from the new report and the wider global context, all in one box, ahead of the African Energy Week 2023, due in October in Cape Town. Ayuk, the Executive Chairman of the African Energy Chamber, joins me now on the show from South Africa. Great having you connecting into the studio tonight.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, NJ. Now, what are the key points from this latest second quarter State of African Energy Industry report?
The state of Africa energy is resilient. It's still going strong. We are seeing a huge uptake in LNG and gas, especially gas going out of the continent into Europe and Asia. But also, we've also seen production being stabilized in some other markets. Nigeria is still struggling with crude oil theft, but when you flip it on the other side, you look at Angola has stabilized its production rates, and you might see an uptick with some new fields coming around. But Equatorial Guinea and Congo, all the OPEC members, they are seeing some production that is at the moment still being stable. But even what is bigger is the new discussions around OPEC with the baseline that is being put on most African countries because they've not been able to meet production targets. That is an issue. But on a big global stage and how it affects Africa, some of the COP27 resolutions with the financing and funding have not been met. $600 billion in green bonds, only 1% in Africa. It's still going to make it very difficult if you're going to see a green transition. If Africa is getting less than 1% of those green bonds. So we still stay resilient. It's still a fossil fuel economy, but don't forget we're seeing crisis in Niger that is going to really affect a lot of energy growth that we see coming up the next quarter. But that pipeline in Niger is staying. The Chinese are still building that pipeline going through Benin. They're going to export a huge amount of crude out there. There's nothing is stopping that. So we are being resilient, and Africa is going to push forward.
So when you talk about the global position right now and the conversation that is the biggest in frontier Africa's energy sector, what's the global position, whether we're still moving on with fossil fuel financing and the whole news that we're seeing across some of the biggest economies in the world, like Canada, offering new licenses for drilling and all of that? Where are we on that at the moment, NJ?
I think Africans have come to realize that we have to go with an African strategy, which is drill, baby, drill. And that would mean that we're just doing the same thing that the Americans are doing. The British are offering 200 licenses out there for those who want to drill. The Germans are building LNG terminals, and coal use coming out of Africa from South Africa and Mozambique and Tanzania. It has gone up, them shipping coal to Europe. African countries, as you see, are actually issuing out more licenses right now and say they are going to explore for natural gas, because you know why? It is going to create jobs for their people. It's going to prevent them from getting into austerity, and it's also going to create a chance for them to have the LPG they need so they can really work on energy poverty issues. Don't forget those numbers. 600 million Africans don't have access to electricity. 900 don't have access to clean cooking. You saw Africans in Russia really dealing with the byproducts coming out of gas to really drive those economies. So there is a big resolute among Africans to drive that, given that most of the wealthy nations that need to decarbonize are not decarbonizing. They have gone on an overdrive on production. So we're seeing Congo LNG, $10 billion by ENI coming in. We're seeing shale gas in Algeria. You're going to see a big uptick with major U.S. companies companies coming in to getting big discoveries out of Egypt 3 weeks ago. Really great news. And Namibia keeps hitting a home run every time by Shell and Total Energies. Africans will not make that mistake to leave the economy behind to wait for 1% green investment.
Well, interesting when you look at situations like you mentioned earlier, touched on earlier on Niger Republic. You know, Nigeria is working on a number of gas pipelines out of the country across the coastline. Then you have the one that goes straight through the Sahel region. With the situation now in Niger Republic, and then we've got to touch on a number of West African countries, then all the way to Morocco and others. So how do you think these things should proceed? How do you think Nigeria, for example, and others should walk through the Niger Republic military coup d'etat with a whole billions and billions of dollars in investments all the way down to Senegal and beyond?
We have to be very careful. I mean, there is a radical position that says that we need to adopt some anti-French, anti-Western, anti-European approach. That is wrong, because you cannot hit European or Western radicalism with African radicalism. It doesn't make sense. We got to look at markets. We got to look at what is practical. We need to move away from strong men to strong institutions, because democracy is the only way that is going to drive Africa forward. We came at one point talking about free markets, and then at the same time we're talking about having a bunch of henchmen taking over governments and state institutions. So and energy doesn't work that way, because if you're going to compete for financing to come into African markets like Niger, that is landlocked and it needs a lot of financing for massive energy development, you're going to have to create that enabling environment, and enabling environments are not created by thugs and dictators taking over government institutions. So we need to have democratic order right back in Niger. I know this is not something popular to say, because most of the people would expect me to say, I stand with the radicals on this. No, we don't. We have to have democratic order, and the junta has to go, because it hurts Africa, it hurts our development, and it hurts all of those of us that say it is time to invest in Africa. We can call for a just energy transition and want them to treat us better, and at the same time we have other Africans destroying our institutions. We need to be consistent. And being consistent with this is good governance. It's going to have to happen. And these guys have to go. And Niger needs that. It needs that, because you know what? The uranium out of Niger, it needs to be used for its people. So we can deal with the issues about neo-colonization and everything. We can deal with the crude oil issues and the resource curse. We could deal with that. But you don't deal with that with a gun. You deal with that by having stronger institutions and having dialogues and moving forward. And I really hope there is no war to resolve this issue. But they need to release the new political prisoners in that country. It doesn't make sense.
Well, Ayuk, a number of African economies like Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya are struggling with fuel subsidies removal and the impact of higher oil prices. What's your take on that?
Fuel subsidies are a controversial issue. Nigeria, Ghana, they're looking at that issue right now. They want to revisit it. We at the chamber, we've always had a position that fuel subsidies got to go. It's better for the economies, and we need to start looking at other ways. But we also have to pay attention at the price of the pump for everyday people and everyday families. We have to ask ourselves the big question across Africa. Who are those that have benefited from fuel subsidies? It is the elites. It's those who have abundant opportunity, well connected, and they are making it. They have really sucked the economy dry, and the everyday people are taking a big hit on it. I mean, some of the guys who benefit from this don't even know what's the cost of bread in the supermarket. We need to be able to find maybe some short-term compensation or short-term ways or tax cuts or whatever to see how we subsidize everyday people. But in the long term, we have to maintain a principled position that fuel subsidies have to go. It's good for the economy, but we need to put the money that we save from subsidies, we need to put it on good use, on infrastructure, on energy poverty programs, put it on clean cooking programs, and even transfer that money to finance finance our own energy transition, our own energy development. So we don't have to give up on natural gas, give up on drill, baby drill, to go back for handouts coming out of Europe or beg for foreign aid, and then we watch them how they end up disgracing our leaders. We can do this ourselves. Take that fuel subsidy money and drill some more gas wells, and let's produce more oil and gas in Africa.
It's 60 days now to the African Energy Summit in Cape Town. I'm not too sure how many hours of sleep you get on a daily basis, NJ. What's the outlook from the preparations, getting all the big names to come through? I saw today that Nigeria's Summer Energy, Minister of State for Energy, Akachukwu, will be speaking as a special guest at that event.
Minister Kaichuku would be amazing. He's former OPEC president, former Apple president, former GECF president. And who doesn't like Minister Kaichuku? His charisma and his intellect. So we look forward to having him, just like we'll be having many more Nigerians, and heads of states will be coming this year, because we need to have a unique African position on a lot of issues. But what is most important, which I really love about the preparations for Energy Week, is our big farm out forum, which we having with a lot of companies. So all those independent, those young African entrepreneurs that have projects, we are putting together what we call a deal room with our free Exim Bank. They're going to look at putting billions of dollars to finance it. So we got to get our stuff right, get your documents right. You pitch in 7 minutes. If you can make your case in 7 minutes and it's interesting, you get a deal signed, because that's what it has to be. It has to be about results. We are going to go big on results, and we got the London boys to do this farm out on upstream side. They're going to get people to put in more money in oil blocks, and drill, baby drill is going to be it. We're not backing down from that. And African Energy Week, we're looking at some big numbers, and on a social scale, we're having some really great Afrobeats artists. So for all those who say you want to bam bam, you want to chill with the big boys, it's going to be happening in October, and I'm really looking forward to it. But most importantly, we're bringing Africa together. The energy industry is coming together. We are setting benchmarks for energy poverty. We're going to do something better. Our generation has to be better. And UTM Offshore in Nigeria will be announcing something big, because they're going to have that Nigerian floating LNG. You bet. Don't bet out on Nigeria at Africa Energy Week. They're going to come out strong.
All right, all the best to you and your team at the AEC. NJ Ayuk, the Executive Chairman at the African Energy Chamber. Thank you very much for your time tonight, and see you next time on the show, at least before the event in the middle of October. Have a great evening. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.